Hi there. Tonight's one-on-one interview with candidate Nisha Arora for Lackawanna County Court of Common Pleas creates the ability on this platform to reshape the political landscape, safeguarding and ensuring more women participate in a safe space, have a voice, and are represented equally at decision-making tables across local and international communities. Good evening, viewers, and thank you for tuning in with us and joining me here with Nisha Arora. On this segment, we are reimagining the political landscape of women in Pennsylvania with guest Nisha Arora. And for those of you who are tuning in that don't know who I am, my name is Diane Madre. I'm running this platform called Let the Women Speak, and it's providing an equal voice for our women. So I'm going to ask Nisha to do a quick introduction, and then we're going to proceed into our live conversation. You, the audience, get to participate with us, and we'll let you know when we're asking you to do that at what point. And you can post our comments, and we'll try to capture as many as we can. Nisha?
Hello.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This is pretty exciting.
Thank you.
So by way of background, I am running for judge for the Court of Common Pleas of Lackawanna County in the election that is tomorrow. So this is the day, the calm before the storm, I think, right? I was born and raised here in Lackawanna County. I grew up in Clark Summit. I went to Abington Heights until 8th grade, and then I went to Scranton Prep for high school. After Scranton Prep, I went to Georgetown University for my undergraduate degree. I graduated with a degree in government and photography, which was a unique combination, but I finished my government classes early, so I took a couple extra classes in photography. And then I went on to Villanova University School of Law, where I graduated with honors, and then I pursued a master's in law, an LLM, at University College London. So I got to live abroad for a year while I did that, which was amazing. And then I came home back to Clark Summit, and I was afforded the opportunity to take on a clerkship with the Honorable Michael J. Barres in the Lackawanna County Court of Common Pleas. So this is a very exciting time for me because it feels like I'm going back home to the place where I started my career. I worked there for almost 3 years, and then I went on to work in family law with Brian J. Calley and Associates. So I worked as a family law litigator for more than 5 years, not only in Lackawanna County, but throughout all of northeastern Pennsylvania. So we covered quite a large area, all the way up to Northampton County, which was pretty great to be able to go to various courthouses. And since I was started as the junior associate there, I was always tasked with the road trips. Okay. So Lackawanna County was the last place I got to go because it was the closest to our Dunmore office. I was always going far away. And then after 5 years there, the family business called, and my mom needed some help with her real estate brokerage. So I came on board and took a position with her as in-house counsel at ERA One Source Realty. So I know I've had quite a few comments about how I work with my mother, but you know, I think that the heart of northeastern Pennsylvania really is small and family-owned businesses. So I think it's been a great opportunity for me to really learn how to run a company. So we have over 100 agents who work for us. I manage a very large amount of them, and I practice real estate law. So I do all transactional law now, doing real estate closings. So last year I did over 230 closings, and we've taken the company back to #1 in the Greater Scranton Board of Realtors. We did, oh gosh, I can't remember how many millions of dollars in transactions we did last year. So it's pretty great. It's been great.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
So with our audience tuning in with us, so once again, welcome to Let Women Speak, and we have our guest, Nisha Arora, who is running for the Lackawanna Judge of Court of Common Pleas, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So with our audience who may be tuning in, it might be a little early now. So I wanted to share something with you, and there was something that I read that says, since the 1970s, the phrase, "the future is female," that's like one of my favorite things, transformed the roles for many women over the years, where more women have taken seats at important tables and become an important and necessary part of the agenda, rather than becoming miscellaneous topic of the agenda. So I'm going to ask Nisha, and I'm going to ask some of you who are tuning in, and you could post your comments in the chat. So what it is that, as I said, since the 1970s, the phrase, "the future is female," and you've seen like t-shirts and hats and stuff. It says the future is female. We've already had our first female vice president. We've never had that before. So history is changing in so many ways. So complete the phrase on the chat where it says the future is, and then complete that, what that means to you individually. And our men that are tuning in could do that as well. So I'm going to ask Nisha to think about that, and we're going to come back to her in a second. But I wanted to share a story with one of my colleagues and good friend who passed away a few years ago. So we had started this organization called Caribbean American Domestic Violence, and we were working with women on domestic violence. So we started the platform. I was the executive officer, so I did all the planning, and I would do all the public speaking and stuff. But occasionally she would go out and do some of the representation for the organization. So there was one instance where she had to speak at a Hindu temple.
Oh, cool.
And she sent me the agenda that she was supposed to speak on, and I was livid because when I looked at it, I'm cruising through the agenda, and I see her name, Sukre Badram, at the bottom of the agenda. And on the bottom, the heading was miscellaneous topic. And I said, absolutely not. You know, domestic violence, which was the issue we were talking about, should not be a miscellaneous topic. So that's why I'm saying, in terms of this, the future is female, ladies and gentlemen, and we're moving into a different era. The fact that Nisha is running, you know, for this seat, there are two strong candidates, Mary Walsh-Dempsey, Nisha Arora. So we're hoping that our viewers tuning in will be able to get some insight into who Nisha Arora is. So when we're asking you to participate in this little icebreaker that we're having online, the future is. So you finish that sentence and post it there, and we'll get some feedback from you. So we're going to have Nisha participate as well. So Nisha, the future is
Global.
Global.
Global. The
Anything
future
else?
is global. Global and diverse. I mean, I think those two words go together. So.
Okay, great. So I'm not able to see some of the comments, but we have someone that's going to provide some stuff to us. Can you see? Oh, okay.
The future is Nisha Arora. Oh, that's cool.
All right,
Thanks.
so someone posted that, so we have that. Any other comments? Five? Could you tell us what they are so we can give the people a shout out, whoever they are?
Steven, the Alexis, Nita Aurora, and Steve Sapp.
Can we have another one? The future is. Okay. All right. So one of the first things I wanted to ask Nisha, and I'm sure some of you who are tuning in that don't know who she is. She talked about earlier about growing up in Lackawanna and her studies and whatnot. So what I wanted to ask you, Nisha, is growing up in Lackawanna, what's your experience like growing up in Lackawanna? Because you were born here. I mean, and we're both Indian women, but I wasn't born in the United States or Pennsylvania. I moved here like 17 years ago, but you were born here. So what was it like growing up, going to school, you know?
I mean, in my mind, I had a pretty ordinary childhood here, but I guess in comparison to my schoolmates and stuff, my childhood was rather extraordinary. So that first time I realized that was probably in first grade. My uncle got married in India. So my mom's family is from Mumbai, which was formerly called Bombay. So her younger brother got married when I was in first grade, and she pulled us all out of school. My little brothers weren't in school, so they went early. I stayed home with my dad until about the first week of May, and then she pulled me out of school for the last 3 weeks of school so I could go attend the wedding. And as you know, Indian weddings tend to be rather elaborate
Especially
and long.
Hindu weddings.
Yeah, Hindu weddings tend to be elaborate and long celebrations. So this wedding was 10 days long, I think. So we went, and my teacher gave me all the work that I needed to do. You know, I went to Waverly Elementary, still one of the best elementary schools. And so the teachers were great. They packed up everything I needed to do. I had a tutor in India who did all the work with me. And I came back to school in the fall, and I had put this book together. That's what they asked me to do, was put a book together with all the pictures and the experiences I had in India.
How old were you?
I was in first grade, so how old does that make me? 6 or 7, maybe, right? And you know, India is a pretty magical place. There's monkeys and snake charmers, and you can ride camels on the beach, and all of these things that everyone else saw on TV, right? So it is really real life, Princess Jasmine and Aladdin in some aspects. So I had this book with all these cool pictures and everything, and everyone was like, "Wow, look at what you got to do, and look at your clothes. You look like a princess." And then I sat back and was like, "Whoa, like maybe I'm a little different." But when you're a little kid, you don't realize that you're different. You maybe your food is different, what you bring to lunch is different. But that no, when you're a child, other children don't make you feel that way. It's that comes from society as you get older, I think. So that was the first experience that I had that my life was not the same as everyone else's. Everyone else was going on vacation to Avalon, and my parents were putting us on airplanes and taking us to Europe, on the way to Dubai, on the way to India, on the way to everywhere they could. Yeah, so we were stopping all over the place. So that was, definitely a great part of my childhood was the travel that we got to do. But other than that, it was bring home straight A's, study hard. You had to play 3 sports and basically, do everything perfectly because that's how Asian mothers are. So you don't really have room for error. You just have to do what needs to be done, and that's it.
Was that a strict home growing up?
Yes, yeah. We had quite a strict home. My father worked quite a bit when I was younger because he was a young physician in town. So his hours were pretty long. I was about 12 when he started to kind of settle into his routine, and the way his practice would run changed. So then he began to be home more, and he started, being able to come to tennis practice with us and things like that. But otherwise, it was just my mom there who took care of us, and it was right around when his work schedule eased that she was able to start her own company, well, her own career, I guess, also. But yeah, I grew up playing tennis at Birchwood, and I played softball, I played soccer in Abington Youth Soccer. It was a pretty normal. I see my friends' kids doing all the same things I did, and the Abington Youth Soccer t-shirts are still the same as they were when I had them. So we had a really fun childhood here, and I think, like I say, the secret's out, and all the people who've moved back here with their kids know that it was a great place to grow up.
That's funny you said that because people are moving from different places to Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and a lot of my friends who I went to school with, who had moved away from here, have had children and come back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's like such a nice place to have a family, and then it's also nice to be close to your family. So grandparents are getting to be with their grandkids, which is really cool.
That's really good to see that.
Yeah.
So one of the other things I wanted to ask you, what has been your leadership journey across Pennsylvania and international?
Well, I feel very privileged because I have had the ability to attend the best schools, and that is really, I owe that to my parents. My father came to the United States because he wanted to be able to give his children the best education possible. And when I tell you, my dad is like super brainiac. He has the best score still to this day in math at the school he went to in India. And Indian school is 10 times harder than American school, maybe 100 times harder. It's so they're so intense there. So he came here because he wanted us to be able to attend the best schools and best colleges and pursue the best professional degrees. So I think my leadership journey has really been framed by that blessing that I've had to be able to attend these schools. Going to Scranton Prep definitely helped shape that because the entire curriculum there is based upon the Jesuit motto of service and service to others, and that to those who much is given, much is expected. So if you are in a position to be able to give back, you should always do so. And that's how I was raised in my family also. That's one of our family mottos is if you can give and help, you should give and help. Going to Georgetown continued on with that Jesuit path. And it was great because being at a school like that, I had friends from all over the world. Like one of my best friends lives in Dubai, another one lives in Hong Kong still. So that was really great, just because you get to really see things from a totally new perspective. And then coming back, well, living abroad also obviously helped shape a lot of things, because seeing how living in a completely different country and, you know, having to make new friends and living a culture, even though it's England, the culture there is quite different than America. So the sense of humor is different, you know, the TV is different. They're like in England, the accent's amazing. I'm gonna take the accent any day. But in London, there's a joke that you pay to breathe, because everything costs money. So there's a council tax in London. So you basically, even if you're a tenant, even if you're a renter, you pay a tax for the privilege of residing in the neighborhood. So that would be like renting a house in Southside and paying a tax for the privilege of living there, or like just the privilege of living in the zip code, pay a tax. It's just like quite an un-American thing. So there are a lot of different idiosyncrasies like that. And I think all that experience really, when I came home and, you know, coming to work at this company has really put me in a leadership position, because I've had many people who work under me. Seeing all this different, living all this different life and seeing things from all these different perspectives has taught me to really just take a second and put myself in someone else's shoes before I make a decision, or before I make a demand that someone else might look at in a different way than I'm looking at it.
So, so here's another question I wanted to ask you, because one of the things, I mean, you're a brown woman, right? Indian woman in this race, and you've already made history by getting the nomination, you know, and being on this ticket, running against a male counterpart. So when you define your commitment to diversity and inclusion, what does this mean to you personally as an incoming judge, to the community of Lackawanna?
So my commitment to diversity and inclusion, I think there's what I strive to on a personal level, and then what I strive to do on a professional level. So obviously on a personal level, I mean, that's just day to day, right? So that's how you treat people. That's how you approach the world. And obviously everyone should make an effort to be inclusive and not look at the world based upon what someone looks like, right? I think that's, you know, pretty much common sense about how people should live their lives. On a professional level, I think as leaders in the community, and especially as female leaders, you have a real opportunity to make this commitment to diversity. As a female minority run business, I have an opportunity to reach out to other women who may be minorities and say, hey, have you ever thought about this as a career? Have you ever thought, you know, and bring them into the sphere of influence, or also to reach out to other female minorities who may be community leaders and hook them up with other people to create connections, because that's how we make, you know, we create these connections and we make these paths to success for each other, right? So we're always creating bridges and always creating relationships, because then we rise up together.
Earlier when we were, before we went on air, we were talking about how much Lackawanna has changed in terms of diversity. Can you just touch on that?
Yeah, so obviously I do transactional real estate closings for a living. So part of the reason that I decided to run for judge was because of this change that I was seeing all these new residents moving into Lackawanna County. I mean, in 1 week, I think I did 9 closings for 9 different non-English speaking families who were moving here from out of state, which is just the volume and the change. And I started noticing it, like, over and over again. I'd go out and I'd say, wow, there's a lot of people, you know, who look like me now walking around, and it's changed.
Is that since COVID? Do you think that COVID impacted this?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I think it was happening slowly anyway, but I
you
think
just noticed it more?
I noticed it more during and after. Well, I mean, I guess we're still in COVID. I don't know if we're ever going to be done with it, but yeah, during the height of the pandemic, I really noticed a lot of families who are escaping cities and urban areas and coming here. And so had the opportunity to be on La Mega, the Spanish radio station earlier today. And the owner was telling me that one of his friends moved here from Massachusetts. And within 3 months, 12 of his family members had bought houses. No, so 13 houses were sold in Lackawanna County within 3 months to members of the Hispanic communities. Just an example of one minority community that's been expanding. We've had members from the Democratic Republic of Congo, from the Nepalese community. Many, many more Indians have come here, and other East Asian families because of the hospitals, because they recruit heavily amongst the Indian community for doctors.
In this area, right?
Mhm, yep.
Okay.
So it's just been slowly, and then I don't know if it was happening slowly and I all of a sudden noticed it, or it was COVID that made it explode. But it was all of a sudden like, wow, we have a lot of diversity here, and I think we need to up our game with representation.
And I'm so glad you said that, to upper game representation, because you're in Lackawanna County, I'm in Wayne County, and I feel like I'm sort of alone because I don't see too many people like myself. So I'm visiting Lackawanna.
Hey, I know what it's like, right? I
Yeah.
grew up down in Clark Summit. There were only 2 stoplights and a McDonald's for most of my life. I remember when I was in college, we finally got sushi, and I almost cried. I was so happy.
And when I have to get, you have to go so far to just get Indian food.
Yeah. Well, you can just come to my house. I can cook you Indian food. Don't worry.
So, so here's the thing I wanted to jump on. And it's important, as we were talking earlier, that on my platform of Let the Women Speak, it's very important to support women's sport. That's been kind of like one of my big pet peeves. So, and I've had a chance to briefly meet Mary Walsh Dempsey, and this is the first time you and I actually
In person,
meeting.
yeah.
So, in a Facebook post on website, your opponent, Mary Walsh Dempsey, declared that she was a victim of smear campaign from your camp. Can you clarify this? And also, Nisha, what did you say to Mary?
So to clarify, an advertisement went out, basically citing an article from the Scranton Times, wherein my opponent was the attorney for the borough of Dunmore, and she represented the borough of Dunmore against some firefighters and policemen in a dispute about cost of living increases in their wages. That's what she does. She is a labor attorney. So part of her job is to work for boroughs, cities, government, to dispute or fight against people who are asking for cost of living increases, who are asking for union benefits that they have collectively bargained for. There's nothing that was a smear campaign about it. It was a fact. There was a repetition of an article that was in the paper. The footnote for the article was in the advertisement. What I say is that lawyers do both sides of the job sometimes, Sometimes you need to take accountability for the legal work that you've done, and there's nothing to be ashamed about with that. You do a good job when you do your job as an attorney. If you're tasked with representing an organization, a borough, a city, and that is your job, is to win the case for that organization, that borough, that city, then you should be proud of that. And there was no dishonesty there. There was nothing there. The message was sent to people who the case might have affected or might affect, and was meant to curtail any disingenuity or ingenuousness that had come from statements that were made on her behalf or that she had made about her career. And some of her career was spent working for actual laborers, and some of her career was spent working for the institutions who bargain against collective labor or collective employment agreements.
So let's talk. So the intent of putting that out was
just to put out the truth. There was no malicious intent there. I mean, an election is ultimately about truth, and you should know the truth about the candidate that you're going to vote for.
So another part of this regarding this question, and should, maybe not necessarily this, but should these types of fear mongering smear campaign ads that some people might put out be rejected in judicial races? Because recently, Maria McLaughlin, who is the Supreme Court, who was in the Supreme Court race, recently experienced this with her opponent, Kevin Brust.
So, I mean, I think this goes to the question also about merit-based and the election-based process for selecting judges. And Pennsylvania is one of a handful of states that selects judges with an election-based process. If you're going to subject candidates to the electoral process, then you're going to have negative ads. And people call them negative ads. I don't agree with smear campaigns. You shouldn't be saying stuff that's not true. But a negative ad that highlights something that is true is going to be part of any election. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast. And if everyone, take that up with the legislature, because then we should have a merit-based selection process, which I don't know, I think 45 out of 50 states use at this point. I think there's only 5 states left that have electoral process for judges.
Right. So with that said, we know we have voters coming in. There are voters who have already voted, but tomorrow, election day, November 2nd, and their voters are going to be going to the polling stations. So, Nisha, why should voters, regardless of their political representation or party, vote for you?
Well, first, let me point out that Republicans, Democrats, and Independents can all vote tomorrow because it is a general election. So it is just like a presidential election. It's just that there's not much on the ticket tomorrow. So I'm sorry, it's a little bit of a boring election in the judicial race. So the Commonwealth Court, Superior Court, and Supreme Court judges are all up for election. There's judicial retention races, and then if you're in Scranton, you have the mayoral race. I'm not sure, in each borough there's some local races too, but there's not really much. It's an off-year election, so there's nothing national. So obviously, everyone should go vote regardless, and I obviously want you to go vote for me. But voting is such an important part of being an American, so I'm going to encourage everyone to go vote. I'm going to tell you why you should vote for me. Being a judge in the Court of Common Pleas is such an important job because the Court of Common Pleas is truly that. It's the court of first instance. It's the court where everyone who's watching this, anyone who is out doing anything, brings their grievances. So you're getting divorced, you have a breach of contract claim, if Diana, God forbid, trips and falls on the steps walking out and has to sue our company, that's where she would bring her case. So it's the court of first instance. And the judge who sits there should have experience in all the areas the court of first instance covers. So this next judge is most probably going to go into family court. And I have a lot of experience in family law. Family law rules are complicated. They're lengthy. The book, I wish I brought the book to show everybody. It's like this big. But there's lots of nuances in family court. There's also lots of dealing with people in family court. It's not just like, oh, this is a divorce. Here's what we do. When you do a custody case, there's 17 factors that you have to, as the judge, go through. You have to hear testimony and evidence and witnesses, and then apply all of that evidence to the factors and determine which way you're going to rule on who gets to spend more time with the child. So these are all things that require experience in that area of the law, but also the right demeanor and the right perspective. You need to bring life perspective and experience with clients who've been on the other side of the bench in that area of the law. I think also my experience as a law clerk has really shown me how the court works. I've been there. I know how to pick a jury. I worked on a murder trial. I've worked on rape trials. I worked on so many drug trials. All of this is the real life experience. So it's not just about like the when you talk about a relationship, it's not about the number of years you've been together. It's about the quality of the years you've been together, right? And the other analogy I've been saying is if you you have to go get brain surgery. Are you going to pick the heart surgeon that has 30 years of experience? Or are you going to pick the brain surgeon who has 5 years of experience? Obviously, you're going to pick the brain surgeon because the brain surgeon knows what it's like to operate on the brain. Lawyers are the same way. We specialize in certain fields. I'm the lawyer who understands what goes on in the Court of Common Pleas because that's the work I've been doing for 14 years. That's the type of work that I'm experienced in. And it's not administrative law, it's actual trial court law. I've been litigating, I've done all the transactional work, and I bring up a unique perspective because I've been in the private sector too. So that's why you should go vote for me.
So on this year's election, we have so many women who are running for office, right?
Yeah.
We're taking a seat at the table from the Supreme Court all the way down. And it's not just in Pennsylvania. And I'm highlighting Pennsylvania and let the woman speak today because Pennsylvania is my home state as yours. And it's important to me. So what I wanted to share was the state Supreme Court will be observing its 300th anniversary next year in 2022. And Superior Court Judge Maria McLaughlin, who I've had an opportunity to meet, hopes to be one of the women who will make up the first majority of women justices in the history of the Supreme Court. So Nisha, as a woman, what is your impact and how and hope for this first judicial run for Lackawanna County Court of Common Pleas?
Well, we didn't elect our first female judge in Lackawanna County until 1997, which to me was a little surprising when I heard that. 1997, and since
Do you
then,
remember who that was?
Judge Corbett, who's still on the bench today. She's actually really handles the majority of the family law cases right now. So she has a caseload of almost 4,000 cases a year, which is quite large. So there's Judge Moyle and Judge Julia Munn are the other two. I'm not forgetting anybody. So either way, there will be a fourth female judge on the bench in Lackawanna County this year, which brings it to 4 females and 5 males.
I was actually looking at that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that's pretty cool because when I was a law clerk, there was only one female judge there. It was just Judge Corbett, and we had senior visiting judges come from all over the state to help cover the case backlog, and there was never a female senior visiting judge. So I think this is a really exciting time to be a woman, especially a woman in politics, although I've never been in politics before, so I can't say that I'm not really a woman in politics. I'm just like dipping my toes in for one election.
So, and one of the things is, if you were to get this seat, you would be the first minority,
Yes.
brown
Yeah.
woman, and I say that
Yeah.
hardly
Mhm.
judge in the county. So,
In either county, Lackawanna, Luzerne, or
Okay.
Luzerne, and Wayne, Pike,
Mhm.
Wayne.
and has that ever happened in the history? So, like, how many years would you say? I think I read somewhere it was like 140. Is that correct?
Yeah. So there's been no minority candidates ever. That's why our billboards say make history, because there's been no minority candidates ever run for the spot of judge in Lackawanna County. So we basically made history when we filed our nomination petitions. We made history again when we secured a party nomination, our party endorsement. Then we made history again in the primary when we secured a party nomination. So it's really been a history-making race, and it is also an historical race because it is the first all-female race in both Lackawanna and Luzerne County. So the sister counties have 2 all-female races, which is like, I don't know how. I'm very, very proud of my colleagues for all of us stepping up and doing this together.
And this is great because it goes back to what I was saying earlier. The future is female. So we have to keep in mind of all the candidates, look at their background. And I'm not here telling anyone who to vote for, but look at the backgrounds, get to know the candidates, going and voting for them, especially tomorrow. So Nisha, as we're closing off on one of the last questions and then opening up to see what our audience responses are. So someone has shared this question with me and I wanted to share it with you. So the criminal justice system is racially biased and it starts before the first contact and continue through pleas, convictions, incarcerations, and release. How are you going to focus on eliminating racial disparity in the criminal justice system and the disproportionate effects of mass incarceration of minorities?
So this is kind of a tough question because as a sitting judge, you don't have control over the laws that are written, like the laws that are enacted. And I think there are problems with the way laws come out of the legislature that disproportionately affect minorities. I also think that there's a trifold society, like well, not a trifold, but a multifaceted societal problem that you have minority communities that suffer rates of higher recidivism, and it becomes cyclical, and that has to do with a breakdown. I mean, there's a failure in the family structure, there's socioeconomic problems, there's addiction problems. So I think all of these issues combined create this racial disparity. So it's an issue that I think is so complicated, but I think one of the first steps and then the most important step is the fact that I acknowledge it exists. I don't think that everything is great in Lackawanna County. I think the Lackawanna County prison is disproportionately full of minorities. And there's obviously something that we need to do to address that, whether that's making sure that the diversionary programs are presented across the board, whether that's taking extra effort to present diversionary programs to minority defendants, because from what I've seen and from people that I've spoken to who've been through the court system, they've said, oh, well, it was too hard. I couldn't handle it. So it was easier just to go to jail for 60 days and take the conviction.
And you've worked in treatment court. Right?
Yeah, I worked extensively in treatment court when I was with Judge Brace. So every Thursday was treatment court day, and that day was dedicated to DUI court, drug court, veterans court. At that time, veterans court had just started. So those, and then there's the intermediate punishment courts, which are the diversionary courts. So that's IP court and RIP court. So the programs are there, and I think the current statistic is that 20% of defendants go through a diversionary program in Lackawanna County. Obviously, having more support on the bench to handle these programs, and someone who's experienced in them, would allow for an expansion of the programs.
That sounds really good, because coming from New York, with my background, I've worked in court systems, I mentioned to you, and it actually started off with treatment courts.
Oh, really?
And in New York,
yeah,
I was part of a program that started the treatment court, which became the drug court.
Okay.
So it's really great to see the expansion when it started in New York into small areas.
Now, you don't have treatment courts in Wayne County, do you? Either?
I'm not sure. I
don't think so.
I don't think
so. So I know when I was at the courthouse, when I was with Judge Brace, they really were pushing the judges in the outlying counties, Wayne, Pike, Monroe, to start the same kind of programs, because the grant money's there to start the programs.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because it's something that I probably need to know. Now we're not having this conversation.
But I hate to say it, like some judges are just not, especially single judge counties, are not open-minded. They don't think the programs work, and that's not true. I'll tell you, like, I'm such a strong believer in these programs. They work. They work.
Well, working in the field, I totally agree with you on that, because I've seen so many people that have gone through the treatment programs, and really came out really well. And some of the programs that I don't know how it is here, but in New York, they provided like school education, different things that, and especially we had a lot of young people who were impacted with drugs and marijuana, different kinds of things. And also at that time, there were what we call MICA, mentally ill and chemically abused.
Yeah.
So those were issues, the mental health aspect
Yeah, was leading
started to
towards.
get, yeah,
Mhm.
and it has to be incorporated a bit more.
Yeah, and
So-
I think getting to the root of the problem is something that the bench and the prosecution owes the defendants, that, that they're going through the system. Because sometimes it is a mental health problem, and you're never going to solve a mental health problem with incarceration. It's just not going to happen. It's only going to get worse.
Well, that was something I used to, with the district attorney's office in New York, advocating for, the mentally ill that were going into incarceration due to, drug use or something like that.
In a lot of counties, it's the easiest thing to do is just to prosecute like an assembly line, and here's your mandatory minimums, and the mandatory minimum sentencing guidelines are very helpful because they give the judge the ability to check, 3 strikes, you're gone, goodbye, state prison, right? But the diversionary programs, you have a way to say, okay, well, let's see what's going on here. Is this a problem that maybe we can fix? And it's really like classmates of mine have gone through the diversion programs, and you sit there as you're sitting there as the attorney in court, and you're saying, "Gosh, I went to school with this person. How did I'm the same? We're the same. Did they just make one different decision than I did and ended up this way?" So when you look at things from that perspective, you really understand that it's not so black and white, like, oh, you did, this crime and you deserve to go to this jail. Sometimes there's alternate path, and sometimes that path is the harder path. Obviously, treatment court is not easy for anybody. I know it's hard on the staff. I know it's hard. It's very hard on the participants. I give them full kudos because I don't think I could complete the program. I mean, 90 meetings in 90 days, and I saw some of the orders that went out, and like that's tough. Like but the support helps people want to dedicate themselves to recovery, and then when they recover because of the support that they got through the program, they're willing to give that support to someone else. So rather than a cycle of incarceration, you get a cycle of support. And there is a big problem with addiction in this county, in the Lackawanna Valley. And it can't be swept under the rug anymore.
So is that something, like, as an incoming judge for Lackawanna, is that something you think you might in the future?
Yeah, I mean, an expansion of those courts is going to be inevitable. I think that's the future of our courts here. We are a model for the state, the country, and the world with our treatment courts, and that's in a big part to my old boss, who's really, really dedicated his career to putting these courts into place. So I know that they work. We've seen our population expand. With that comes good things, but that comes bad things, So yes, we are going to have economic growth. We have more diversity. We have a lot more, going on. There's more people everywhere, but that's going to bring more cases in court. That's going to bring more crime. That's going to bring more drug cases. This is just the way growth in a community works. So we need to be ready to deal with it. And I think this is one of the ways that we prepare ourselves for that. We already have the programs in place.
So as we're beginning to wrap up, I wanted to share this with you. I was on my way here and I was driving. And as we said earlier, this is the first time we're meeting.
Yeah.
So
only on Zoom. We met on Zoom.
Yeah. So
with scary questions.
But what happened when I was driving, coming here, I saw one of your billboards. And it was a little bit emotional for me to read something that was on it. And I want to know what the impact of it was for you in the campaign and using this as your slogan. Forgotten no more. Tell me about that. Because I felt it just reading it as I drove past that sign. So I want to know what you felt when you and your team created this campaign
So,
and putting that phrase, forgot no more.
okay, and I'm gonna give you full disclosure
Yeah.
on this one, okay?
You
Forgotten,
talked to her.
forgotten no more was my husband's idea. That was his slogan. And to be honest, when he told it to me, I didn't get it. I don't know if it was just the day or, I was busy doing other things. My mind goes a million miles a minute on a normal day. You can imagine it goes like 1,000 miles or more, even faster during this campaign. So I was like, Jamie, whatever you want to do, just do it. And then I drove by it and I was like, oh, but it took the third time of me driving by it to get it. And then somebody else said it last week and they're like, we get it. And now this week, it's really hit home because I've had people come up to me and say, thank you for doing this. Thank you for being a voice for us because we have never had anybody who looks like us stand up and take the spotlight and be brave and run for a position. And to me, that is what forgotten.
So it started off one way, but it created an impact for you.
A different way, yeah. It was meant to bring attention to, like the people that we had sort of just swept under the rug. We had abandoned our police and our veterans and our first responders, and we were not, like, okay, you're from Guyana. My parents are from India. When you call 911, someone doesn't always come. You know what I mean? Like, it depends. I mean, it's better now, but I know when my parents were younger, there was no 911. You had to go find an ambulance to come get you, or go take yourself to the hospital. So these were things that were important to us from the beginning of our campaign. These were reasons that my family came here, elements of the American dream that I wanted to bring attention to. And to be able to then translate that message into a whole host of members of our community who now feel that they have a voice. I mean, that's just a gift enough, for this whole campaign. I can't even thank everyone for the support that I've gotten and the messages of kindness that I've gotten. It's really been overwhelming at times.
And I have to tell you, I know your biggest supporter is your husband, Jamie.
Yeah.
Because when you called me yesterday and you got on the phone and, just having that conversation with him was so important. And I can see what you said earlier about, when we talk about relationships, quantity versus quality.
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely got your back.
Yeah. He's
in the conversation we had, he'll tell you about it. But,
I've known him for my whole life, and I hated him for most of it. So we've been together.
You guys knew each other growing up?
Mm-hmm. No, we've always lived in the same neighborhood. So we've always lived about 2 houses down from each other. And about 4 years ago, we got together, and we've been inseparable ever since. So,
but you hated him growing up? Yeah. Because I know he's going to be listening to this.
Yeah. It's funny which way life brings you, right? And now I couldn't imagine my life without him. But yeah, he's my number one supporter, and he has been like just an immeasurable source of strength during this campaign, because we've had a lot of haters too. I was afraid of a lot more negativity. Thank God the community's really been embracing and excited about this message. I can't help that I'm a minority, and I can't help that I'm a candidate. That makes me the minority candidate, right?
Yeah, it's funny that someone said to me when I was having this conversation that I was going to be interviewing for the campaign and for Let Women Speak. And it's rightfully so, because as brown women, we both are.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you can brush us under the rug and come back out
another
color.
I can't.
It's not going to happen, folks. So we are who we are. But I think it's the equal representation that my platform tries to create.
Yeah.
What you're trying to impact on.
And I would love if we never had to use the word diversity again. I would love if that was just
Or brown women.
yeah, if that was just a word that we didn't have to use because it sounds like the other. Why do we need to be the other? It should just be, everyone should be represented. But that's unfortunately not the reality of life. So we need to make a commitment to make it better so we can get there. That's
So how can we do that? Getting to the point where you're at right now, and for someone like me as well, you're opening doors for other young girls that might be families who might have young girls
Yeah.
in other minority groups, Hispanic, Indians, blacks, whatever, to look at someone like you that's running for that seat, and you're about to take the seat.
I think we just keep doing what we're doing, like
Having a conversation.
having the conversation.
Mhm.
That's it. I think that's going to be the true way that we as a country move forward. Just keep the dialogue open because there's nothing wrong with someone who has an opinion that's different from yours. And as long as we can learn to respect that and move forward, I think that's going to
But
be.
I have one for you. What if they say to a brown woman, and I'm not going to say who said it, but if they say to a brown woman, you got to be one of us. You're not one of us.
Oh, yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah,
I'm
me
not.
too.
I'm not. I don't know I don't know the answer
Yeah.
to that. Like, I can't help it. I grew up in Clark Summit. Like, there's, I can only be who I am, and I can be accepting of all people, but to reverse it on me, like, that's just you
Like,
have.
we can't go under the rug.
Yeah. No,
No,
you like kind of have to clap back
Yeah,
then
yeah.
at people and say that's not okay either, right? So if you're not you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. At that.
It was funny because I was born in another country, but you were born here,
Mhm.
and but growing up here and going to school, and I remember in my younger years, the kids at school used to call me India, the boys,
Mhm.
the bullying and stuff. So it's interesting how much it's transformed that even today we still have some of the things.
Yeah.
But we're moving in a different direction. So tomorrow is a very important day, Nisha.
Tomorrow is
Yeah.
a very important day.
So
I would
excited.
say getting married was the most important day of my life, but I don't think so. I think tomorrow might trump that. I'm very excited. This has been a wild ride. It's been so amazing. So I just want to encourage everyone to go vote tomorrow. The polls open at 7 a.m. and they close at 8 p.m. And it should be a nice sunny day
So are
tomorrow.
you going to be out and about?
Yeah, we'll be out and about. Check in on our Facebook. We'll be posting stories all day long. But if you see me, I'll be in the truck, the infamous truck.
Yeah.
So,
I've seen that on your
beep
Facebook
and
page.
wave, stop us if you want to say hi. We'll be, there are 144 polls in Lackawanna County. So
Are you
obviously,
planning to hit all of them?
no, I won't be able to hit all of them. But I will be hitting as many as I can. So definitely stop up and say hi if you see me. I would love to meet everybody. And yeah, that's it. Tomorrow's the day. Tomorrow's D-Day. And I will tell you that one of the attorneys, one of my friends, he works on campaigns. He worked on an election in Susquehanna County, and the race was won by 9 votes. 9. So it is very important that everybody
it's
goes
funny.
out and votes.
It's funny you say that because for Wayne County and Susquehanna County, the 2 of the commissioners, one commissioner in Wayne County last year, she won by 4 or 5 votes. The one in Susquehanna won by 100 votes. Women, mind you. So tomorrow is very important, looking at the number of women and how much they're transforming the platform, especially on the judicial system and running for office. So again, as I said earlier, I'm not, I'm here to support the women. I'm here to support Nisha. So listen to this conversation that we've had here. Look at some of the other interviews she's had on her Facebook page, and then you decide. You, the voters, decide. But do us a favor. Do show up to vote. This election is as important as the one next year and the one in 2024. So keep in mind of the representation for the candidates for your community. Nisha's representing Lackawanna County, and history could be in the making for a minority judge in this county. So again, I want to thank you all for tuning in with us, and hope you enjoyed the conversation. And stay tuned because we'll be having other conversations on that Women's Speak platform. Nisha, any last words?
Nope, that's it. November 2nd, tomorrow, that's the day. So, make sure you go out and vote and, Aurora for judge. We did it. We're gonna make history.
And one of the things is, thank you so much because this is your last interview for the night.
Yes, last but not
Let the woman
least.
speak.
I know, last but not least.
So thank you again.
No,
for
thank
taking
you.
the time
It's
to doing this.
such a great honor. I really appreciate the
Thank you.
opportunity.
And for me too. Appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.